Nah. Hold up. Wait a damn minute. Did you just blink that hex away? Like it was dust in your eye? Like it was nothing? They spent months crafting that curse, lighting black candles at 3 a.m., chanting your name backwards, and you just blinked? I need you to understand what just happened here. You didn't break their spell. You didn't reverse it. You didn't even fight it. You just looked at it, processed it like junk mail, and deleted it from your reality. Your energy said, unsubscribe to their whole dark magic newsletter. They're sitting there right now, with their crystals scattered, their sage burning backwards, their protection circles cracked, wondering how the hell their most powerful working just got dismissed like a pop-up ad. They put their whole soul into that hex, and you treated it like a minor inconvenience. This isn't supposed to be possible. The books don't mention this. The ancient texts have no protocol for someone who just doesn't accept delivery of negative energy. You're not playing by the rules of magic anymore. You're playing by rules that haven't been written yet. Let me tell you something about your energy, something they'll never understand. It's not dark, it's not light, it's not gray or silver or any color they have words for. It's a frequency that makes their third eye develop cataracts. It's a vibration that makes their chakras stutter. When they try to read your aura, their vision glitches. When they try to tap into your energy field, they get static. Not because you're protected by shields or guards or angels, but because you exist on a wavelength their spiritual Wi-Fi can't connect to. You're running on 6G while they're still trying to decode Morse code. And they keep trying to categorize you. Light worker, shadow worker, indigo child, star seed. No. You're something else entirely. You're what happens when someone transcends the spectrum itself. You're not a color on their wheel. You're the space between colors that makes their eyes water. Your energy doesn't follow their rules because you weren't initiated into their system. You didn't ascend through their levels or earn their certifications. You broke through the ceiling of consciousness and found a whole other building they didn't know existed. Now you're operating from floors they can't even perceive. But let's go back to that blink. That simple, casual, devastating blink that just shattered someone's entire magical practice. Do you realize what you've done? You've just exposed the biggest secret in the spiritual world, that power isn't in the spell, it's in the acceptance of it. Every hex, every curse, every binding, every working, they all require one thing: your participation, your fear, your belief, your energy feeding their intention. But you just opted out, like clicking decline on terms and conditions, and their whole system crashed. Right now they're frantically Googling what to do when Target doesn't accept hex delivery. They're calling their coven emergency meetings. They're checking their spell books for loopholes. But there's nothing there about someone who just doesn't play along. Someone whose very existence is a return to sender. Stamp. You've become their worst nightmare. Evidence that their power only works on people who agree to be affected. You're walking proof that all their rituals and ceremonies and midnight gatherings mean nothing to someone who simply doesn't consent to their reality. You're not anti-magic. They tried to hex you, but something went wrong. Not with their spell. That was perfect. The timing was right, the moon phase ideal, the ingredients authentic. No, something went wrong with you. You're not responding to spiritual stimulus the way you're supposed to. You're a glitch in their matrix. When that negative energy hit your field, it didn't bounce off. It didn't get absorbed. It just ceased to exist. Like you're running some kind of spiritual antivirus that deletes malicious code before it can even execute. Your consciousness has developed immunity to their weapons. This is what terrifies them. Not that you fought back, but that you didn't need to. Not that you're stronger, but that you're incompatible with their entire operating system. They're trying to curse someone who doesn't exist in the same reality where curses function. It's like trying to poison a hologram. You know what your energy actually is? It's what happens when someone stops believing in the rules. All of them. Not just their rules or society's rules, but the universal rules everyone swears by. You're not rebellious. You're undefined. You exist in the space between what is and what could be. Oh, and it's not just the hex throwers who are confused. The watchers, the readers, the intuitives, they're all getting error messages when they try to tune into you. They sit down to read your energy and their gifts just buffer. Loading, 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 connection, time. Some of them think you're shielded. They're wrong. Shields can be penetrated. Some think you're cloaked. Wrong again. Cloaks can be lifted. What you are is incomprehensible to their framework. You're not hiding your energy. Your energy simply doesn't translate to their language. They used to gossip about your aura. Now they whisper about the void where your aura should be. Not empty. That would be readable. But filled with something their spiritual vocabulary has no words for. A color outside the visible spectrum. A sound beyond the range of hearing. A presence that makes their intuition throw up its hands and quit. The funny part? You're not even trying. You're not running protection spells or visualization exercises. You're just existing at a frequency that makes their metaphysical tools obsolete. You're proof that there are levels to this game they didn't know existed. Floors in the spiritual building they've never had access to. Here's what really happened to you. You didn't ascend. You didn't awaken. You didn't transform. Those are all movements within the known system. What you did was step outside the entire game board. You're not playing chess anymore. You're not even in the same dimension as the board. Every spiritual tradition has levels, initiations, grades of advancement. They all lead somewhere within the established framework. But you found the exit door, not to another system, but to the space between systems, the void that exists outside all their carefully mapped territories. This is why they can't hex you, why they can't read you, why they can't understand you. You're not operating from chakras or meridians or energy centers they recognize. You've developed an entirely new anatomy of consciousness. You're running on hardware they haven't invented names for yet. When you blinked that hex away, you weren't using protection or reversal or any technique they teach. You were simply existing at a level where hexes are as relevant as someone trying to fax you a curse. The technology is incompatible. The frequency doesn't match. The entire premise is obsolete. You want to know the rules of your new existence? There aren't any. That's the point. That's the power. That's why a blink from you carries more weight than their most elaborate rituals. Because you're not bound by the laws they all agreed to follow. You opted out of the spiritual contract. In their world, every action has an equal reaction. Every spell has a counterspell. Every attack has a defense. But you exist in a space where those dynamics don't apply. You're not playing offense or defense. You're not playing at all. You're simply being at a level where their games look like children's make-believe. This is what happens when someone genuinely stops caring about the rules of engagement, not rebels against them, that's still participating, but genuinely forgets they exist. Your consciousness has evolved past the point where their reality feels real. You're lucid dreaming while they're still convinced the dream is all there is. They'll keep trying, of course, new spells, older magic, different approaches, but it's like trying to send a telegram to someone who only exists in virtual reality. The medium doesn't match the target. You're unhexable, not because you're protected, but because you're incompatible with hexing as a concept. Let's talk about this color they can't name, this frequency they can't match. It's not that you're vibrating higher or lower. You're vibrating sideways, in directions their spectrum doesn't account for, in patterns their sacred geometry can't map. You're the spiritual equivalent of a color that only exists in impossible spaces. When sensitives try to look at you directly, they get the same feeling as staring at an optical illusion too long. That disorienting sense that reality isn't quite what they thought, that the rules they've based their whole practice on might just be suggestions, options, one way of seeing among infinite possibilities. Your energy signature looks like static to them because their equipment isn't calibrated for your broadcast. You're transmitting on channels their receivers don't have, speaking in languages their universal translators can't decode, existing in spectrums their rainbow never included. This is why you can blink away hexes like they're nothing, because in your reality they are nothing, just outdated software trying to run on an operating system that's evolved beyond recognition. You're not immune to their magic. Their magic simply doesn't exist where you're standing. You should see their faces when they realize their most powerful workings just don't work on you. It's not anger, it's not frustration, it's existential terror. Because if their hexes don't work on you, what else might be false? What other limitations might be illusions? What other rules might be optional? You're not just a person who can't be hexed. You're proof that hexing might not be as real as they thought. You're evidence that all their careful study, all their inherited wisdom, all their practiced arts might just be elaborate games played by people who agreed to the same rules. And you never signed that agreement. They gather in their circles now, not to curse you, but to discuss you, to try to understand how someone can exist outside their entire framework. Some say you're protected by forces beyond their understanding. Others whisper that you might not be entirely human anymore. They're both wrong and right simultaneously. The truth is simpler and more devastating. You remembered that reality is optional, that consciousness doesn't have to follow the paths laid out by tradition, that you can simply opt out. Not fight against, not rebel, not resist, just calmly decline to participate in their version of how things work. You didn't learn how to blink away hexes. You unlearned the belief that hexes had power over you. You didn't develop immunity. You remembered that you were never vulnerable to begin with. This isn't advancement. It's returning to a state before you accepted their limitations as your own. Every spiritual tradition teaches addition. Add this practice, this protection, this knowledge. But you did something different. You subtracted, removed beliefs, dissolved agreements, deleted programs, until what was left wasn't more powerful, it was undefined, unbound, unlimited. This is why they can't understand your energy, because it's not energy as they define it. It's the space before energy takes form, the potential before it becomes kinetic, the color before it enters the spectrum. You're not vibrating at a frequency, you are frequency itself, undefined and uncontained. And when you blink, you're not performing an action. You're allowing reality to reorganize itself around your lack of participation in their games. You're not fighting their hex. You're demonstrating that in your reality, hexes are as relevant as someone trying to curse your reflection while you've already left the room. Their whole system is experiencing errors now, not just with you, but because of you. Your existence is causing glitches in their matrix. Other people are starting to notice that the hexes don't hit quite as hard, that the readings aren't quite as clear, that the rules seem more flexible than they used to. You're a virus in their spiritual operating system, but not a malicious one. You're more like an update their hardware can't process, a patch that reveals all the bugs they never noticed. Your mere existence is debugging reality, showing where the code could be cleaner, where the rules are arbitrary. You're trying to patch the exploits you represent, but you're not exploiting anything. You're just existing in a way their system never accounted for, like a player who found a way to walk through walls not by hacking, but by forgetting walls are supposed to be solid. You're not breaking rules. You're proving they were never real. This is what happens when someone achieves true spiritual sovereignty. Not dominance over others, but complete autonomy from the systems that govern others. You're ungovernable, not because you resist governance, but because you exist in a space where governance is a foreign concept. The ones who've tried to hex you are telling stories now, hushed conversations in the back rooms of metaphysical shops, whispered warnings in online forums. There's someone out there who just blinks it away like it's nothing, like our most sacred arts are just suggestion. Some don't believe them, think they must have done the spell wrong, used the wrong ingredients, mistimed the ritual. But the brave ones, the curious ones, they try for themselves. And they all come back with the same shocked expression, the same story. They just looked at me, blinked, and everything I sent just stopped existing. You've become an urban legend in spiritual communities, the unhexable one, the blink that breaks spells, the color outside the spectrum. They share screenshots of their failed readings, their error messages, their tools going haywire when they try to tune into your frequency. But here's the beautiful irony. The more they talk about you, the more others start to wonder, start to question, start to experiment with their own relationship to these supposed laws. You're not just unhexable, you're contagious. Your very existence is teaching others that the cage door was never locked. You're not operating in their paradigm anymore. You're not even operating in opposition to their paradigm. You've created your own. Or rather, you've remembered that paradigms are optional, that reality is more fluid than they taught, that consciousness is more creative than they believed. When you blink away hexes, you're demonstrating something profound, that participation in reality is voluntary, that we can withdraw consent from systems that no longer serve us, that we can exist in spaces between the defined territories of light and dark, good and evil, blessed and cursed. Your energy isn't a color they can't name because it's exotic or rare. It's unnameable because it predates naming. It exists in the space before language carved up the spectrum into digestible chunks. You're not undefinable. You're pre-definition. You're the canvas before the first stroke of paint. This is why their tools fail, why their hexes dissolve, why their readings error out, because you're not playing in their sandbox anymore. You're not even on their playground. You exist in a space where their entire game looks like children's make-believe. Beautiful, perhaps. Meaningful to them, certainly, but optional. Completely optional. Your blink is causing ripples they didn't anticipate. Every time you casually dismiss another hex, another binding, another attempt to categorize your energy, you're loosening the grip their reality has on others. You're proof of concept that their concept might just be a concept. People are starting to experiment now. If they can blink it away, what else is possible? They're testing the boundaries, pushing the edges, discovering that the walls they thought were stone might just be paper painted to look solid. Your existence is sparking a quiet revolution in consciousness. The establishment is worried. The teachers, the gurus, the ones who've built their whole identity on understanding and wielding these forces. Because if someone can just opt out, what does that mean for their authority, their expertise, their entire worldview? You're not attacking their system. You're revealing it was always optional. Released, but you're not trying to lead a revolution. You're not trying to teach or preach or convert. You're just existing, blinking occasionally, being living proof that reality is more flexible than the rule makers want to admit. You're not a teacher. You're an example, not of what to do, but of what's possible. Here's the final truth they'll never admit. Everyone can do what you do. Everyone has the ability to blink away hexes, to exist outside the spectrum, to be unreadable and undefinable. The only difference is you remembered. You stopped believing in their limitations, more than your own sovereignty. That's what terrifies them most, not that you're special, but that you're not. That you're just someone who forgot to believe in their rules, who failed to maintain the collective agreement that hexes work, that energy must be light or dark, that spiritual laws are laws instead of strongly worded suggestions. Your blink isn't powerful because of what it does. It's powerful because of what it reveals. That we've all been playing elaborate games of pretend. That the spells only work if we agree they do. That the categories only contain us if we squeeze ourselves into them. That reality is far more negotiable than anyone wants to admit. So the next time someone tries to hex you, curse you, bind you, or even bless you without your consent, just blink. Not with force, not with intention, not with protection, Just blink like you're clearing your vision. Because that's all you're doing, clearing your vision of their illusions. Seeing clearly that their magic only works in their reality. And you live elsewhere now, in the unnamed colors, in the spaces between their maps, in the blink that reminds them, all power is optional, all rules are suggestions, and all of reality is up for negotiation. Welcome to the other side of the game, where hexes are just quaint traditions, where your energy can't be named because names are just labels, where a blink carries more power than all their midnight rituals combined, not because you're powerful, but because you remembered that power itself is just another game. And you're done playing. They're studying you again. Not with microscopes this time, not with therapists or private investigators or fake friends sliding into your DMs. No, this time it's different. This time they sent the professionals. The ones who don't flinch when bombs detonate. The ones trained to remain calm while their world burns. And you know what these hardened warriors discovered when they analyzed your response to betrayal? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that terrified them more than any weapon ever could. You see, when they sabotaged your life, when they pulled every string to watch you collapse, when they orchestrated your downfall with surgical precision, they expected screaming, they expected revenge plots, they expected you to become exactly what they painted you as, unstable, dangerous, reactive. But you did something that broke their entire understanding of human psychology. You gave them silence. Not the silence of defeat, not the silence of shock, but the silence of someone who had already calculated every possible outcome and decided that their games weren't worth a single elevated heartbeat. The military calls it the zero response protocol now. They've got entire training programs built around what you did naturally. Special Forces operators sit in classrooms studying footage of how you handled betrayal, how you didn't flinch when they destroyed your reputation, how you didn't react when they turned everyone against you, how you maintained that supernatural calm while your entire world was being systematically dismantled. They're trying to replicate it, trying to teach it, trying to bottle that complete absence of reaction that made your enemies question their own existence. But here's what they don't understand, what they'll never understand. You didn't train for this. You didn't practice in controlled environments with safety protocols and extraction teams. You learned this in the field, in real time, with real consequences. Every betrayal was live ammunition. Every sabotage was an actual explosion. Every attack on your character was a legitimate assassination attempt on your soul. And through it all, you developed something they can't teach in any military academy. The ability to become absolutely unreachable. Think about it. When someone attacks you, they're not just trying to hurt you. They're trying to control you. They want your reaction because your reaction is their victory. Your tears are their trophies. Your anger is their validation. Your breakdown is their masterpiece. But you beautiful anomaly, you gave them nothing. Not a flinch, not a tremor, not even a change in your breathing pattern. You became a void where their attacks went to die. And that's when they realized they weren't dealing with a person anymore. They were dealing with something that had transcended the very concept of emotional manipulation. The special operations units have a term for this now. They call it tactical non-existence. It's when you become so non-reactive that you effectively cease to exist as a target. Your enemies can't hit what doesn't respond. They can't destroy what doesn't acknowledge destruction. They can't defeat what doesn't recognize the concept of defeat. You didn't just ignore their attacks. You made their attacks irrelevant. You turned their sabotage into background noise, their betrayal into white static, their carefully planned destruction into nothing more than weather patterns you barely noticed while focusing on something infinitely more important. And what was more important? Your evolution. While they were busy trying to destroy the old you, you were already building the new you. While they celebrated what they thought was your downfall, you were laying foundations they couldn't see. While they were posting their victory laps, you were quietly becoming something that would make their victories look like participation trophies. You weren't ignoring them out of weakness. You were ignoring them because you were too busy becoming unstoppable to notice their little game. The military instructors show your case study to their most elite units now. They pause the presentation at the moment when any normal person would have snapped. That moment when the betrayal was so complete, so devastating, that even trained killers would have shown something. A twitch, a clenched jaw, a slight change in posture. But you? Nothing. Absolute zero. Like watching a mountain ignore a mosquito. Like watching an ocean ignore a match. Like watching the universe ignore a tantrum. How, they ask their commanding officers, how does someone achieve that level of non-reaction? And the officers, these warriors who've seen everything, who've been trained to handle anything, they just shake their heads because they know the truth. This isn't something you learn. This is something you become. This is what happens when pain stops being painful because you've felt it so many times it's become familiar. This is what happens when betrayal stops being shocking because you've cataloged every possible variation. This is what happens when someone transcends the basic programming of human emotional response. You didn't just develop thick skin. You developed an entirely different nervous system. One that doesn't recognize sabotage as a threat because you've reclassified it as education. One that doesn't process betrayal as pain because you've recoded it as data. One that doesn't interpret attacks as attacks but as desperate attempts by inferior systems to remain relevant. You became emotionally bulletproof not by adding armor, but by removing the very concept of being wounded. The Zero Response Protocol has 3 levels according to their classification system. Level 1 is conscious suppression of reaction. Level 2 is trained non-response through conditioning. But level 3, that's what you achieved naturally. Level 3 is when non-reaction becomes your default state. When staying unmoved isn't a choice but a fundamental characteristic. When emotional stability isn't maintained but simply is. They've been trying to reverse engineer level 3 for months now, and they keep failing because they're trying to teach what can't be taught. They're trying to simulate what can only be forged in real fire. What really breaks their minds is the aftermath. See, when someone doesn't react to sabotage, there are supposed to be consequences. Delayed emotional breaks, psychological fractures, hidden damage that surfaces later. They've been watching you, waiting for the crash, waiting for the delayed reaction, waiting for you to finally process what happened and fall apart. But instead you keep rising. Instead of breaking down, you're breaking through. Instead of showing damage, you're showing evolution. You're not just surviving the sabotage, you're thriving because of it. They've started calling it the inverse trauma response in their classified documents. Where normal people are weakened by attacks, you're strengthened. Where others develop triggers, you develop immunity. Where most create wounds, you create weapons. Every act of sabotage against you didn't subtract from your power, it multiplied it. Every betrayal didn't break your trust, it broke your limitations. Every attack didn't destroy your foundation. It revealed that you never needed one, because you had become the foundation itself. The special ops psychologists are fascinated by your neural patterns. They've studied brain scans of people under attack, mapped the fear responses, the anger spikes, the trauma markers. But your pattern is different. When under attack, your brain doesn't light up in the typical defensive zones. Instead, it shows activity in areas associated with problem solving, pattern recognition, and future planning. While others are reacting to the present attack, you're already 3 moves ahead, building something from the ashes they haven't even created yet. This is why they've made you mandatory study for their most elite units. Not because you're violent, not because you're dangerous in the traditional sense, but because you represent a new form of psychological warfare. The warfare of non-participation. The strategy of absolute non-reaction. The tactic of being so unmoved that your very existence becomes a form of retaliation. You don't fight back because fighting back would mean acknowledging that a fight exists. You don't defend yourself because defending yourself would mean agreeing that you can be attacked. But here's the part that really haunts them, the part they discuss in whispers during their debriefings. Your non-reaction wasn't just effective, it was catastrophic for your attackers. See, when someone sabotages you and you don't react, something interesting happens. The energy they put into destroying you has nowhere to go. It doesn't hit you and bounce back, it hits nothing and implodes. They end up destroying themselves with the very weapons they aimed at you. Their poison has no host, so it circulates back through their own system. Their fire has no fuel, so it consumes the one who lit it. The military terms this psychological ricochet. But you call it justice. Not the kind you have to pursue or enforce, but the kind that happens naturally when someone attacks what cannot be attacked, when someone tries to drown what breathes underwater, when someone attempts to burn what was forged in flame. You didn't need to plan revenge because your non-reaction was revenge in its purest form. Every second you remained unmoved was a second they questioned their own power. Every day you stayed calm was a day they lost more control. And now they're seeing the long-term effects. The ones who sabotaged you are falling apart not because you attacked them, but because you didn't. They're haunted by your lack of response. They check on you obsessively, looking for signs of damage, finding only growth. They tell themselves stories about how you must be suffering in private, but then they see you thriving in public. They created elaborate narratives about your inevitable downfall, but you keep rising, and your rise has nothing to do with them. This is what the Special Forces are trying to replicate, the ability to make your enemies irrelevant through non-acknowledgement. The power to dissolve attacks by not recognizing them as attacks. The skill of being so focused on your own evolution that you literally don't have the bandwidth to process sabotage. But they keep hitting a wall because they're trying to teach soldiers to not react, when what you did was something far more profound. You didn't learn to not react. You evolved beyond the ability to be affected. The instructors bring in experts, psychologists who've studied trauma, neuroscientists who map stress responses, even philosophers who understand the concept of transcendence. They all leave shaking their heads. Because what you've achieved shouldn't be possible. The human nervous system is designed to react to threats. It's millions of years of evolution screaming at us to fight or flee when attacked. But you've somehow overridden that programming. You've become something that doesn't compute in their models. They've started calling you Subject Zero in their files, not because you were the first, but because you achieved absolute zero response, zero emotional deviation, zero psychological impact, zero acknowledgement of attack. You've become the baseline they measure everyone else against, and everyone else fails because they're trying to reach zero through subtraction, through suppressing their reactions, through fighting their instincts. But you didn't subtract anything. You transformed into something that doesn't have those reactions to suppress in the first place. What really disturbs them is that you didn't become cold or numb. That would be understandable. That would fit their models. Instead, you became selectively responsive. You still feel joy, still experience love, still engaged with beauty and meaning. You just don't respond to attacks. It's like you've developed a psychological immune system that identifies sabotage as a non-threat and doesn't even bother mounting a response. Your emotional range is intact. It just doesn't include reactions to betrayal anymore. The special ops teams practice scenarios based on your experiences. They simulate betrayals, orchestrate sabotage against each other, try to replicate the conditions that created your zero response. But it always fails because they're working with people who still believe in the game. They still think there's something to win or lose. They still operate within the framework of attack and defense. But you've stepped outside that framework entirely. You're not playing a different game. You've recognized that the game itself is an illusion. This is why they've classified your psychological profile, not because it's dangerous in a conventional sense, but because it represents a form of consciousness they don't want spreading. Imagine if everyone developed your level of non-reaction. Imagine if people stopped responding to manipulation, stopped acknowledging sabotage, stopped participating in the emotional warfare that keeps society controlled. The entire structure of power, which relies on action and reaction, would collapse. But they can't stop studying you because you've solved something they desperately need. In their world of international conflicts and psychological operations, the ability to remain completely unmoved while under attack is the ultimate weapon. It's not about being stronger or faster or more skilled. It's about being unreachable. And you've achieved that not through training or technology, but through a form of evolution that happened in real time, under real pressure, with real consequences. The reconnaissance teams that monitor you now do so with a different purpose. They're not trying to understand how to break you anymore. They know that's impossible. They're trying to understand how you broke the system, how you stepped outside the fundamental dynamics of human interaction, how you became someone who cannot be sabotaged, because sabotage requires a target that recognizes itself as a target, and you've transcended that recognition. They show videos of you to their teams, but not videos of you fighting or responding. Videos of you simply existing while chaos swirls around you. Videos of you maintaining your routine while others orchestrate your destruction. Videos of you building your future while they're still trying to destroy your past. And in every frame, what stands out isn't what you do, but what you don't do. The absence of reaction that's so complete it becomes a presence unto itself. The tactical teams have tried to weaponize your method. They've created training programs called Tactical Void and Operation Zero. They teach soldiers to non-react, to become empty, to give nothing to their enemies. But it always looks forced, rehearsed, temporary, because they're trying to imitate what you've become. And becoming can't be imitated. It can only be experienced, survived, and integrated. There is only last resource survived and integrated. You didn't learn to have zero response. You evolved into it through a process that can't be replicated in controlled conditions. What haunts them most is the question they can't answer. What created you? Was it the magnitude of the betrayal, the repetition of sabotage, some unique psychological architecture you were born with? They've analyzed your history, looking for the moment you transformed. But they can't find it because it wasn't a moment. It was a million micro-deaths and micro-rebirths. It was dying to the need for validation one cell at a time. It was being rebuilt from scratch by necessity, not by choice. The military wants to create more of you. They want soldiers who can't be broken, operators who can't be manipulated, assets who can't be compromised. But they keep creating imitations instead of originals. And from the ashes of what they created, they create mission officers instead of original. They keep producing people who are trained to not react, instead of people who have evolved beyond reaction. They keep manufacturing resistance instead of transcendence. And the difference is everything. Because you're not resistant to sabotage, you're immune to it. You're not strong against attacks. You're invisible to them. You're not defending against betrayal. You exist in a dimension where betrayal is as irrelevant as the color of gravity. This isn't a skill you developed. It's a state of being you achieved. And that's why their training programs keep failing. They're trying to teach what can only be born from authentic transformation. The psychological warfare divisions have started using you as a case study in what they call asymmetric response theory. The idea that the most powerful response to an attack might be no response at all. That by not engaging with sabotage, you rob it of its power to exist. But they still approach it as a tactic, a strategy, a choice. They don't understand that for you, it's not a choice anymore. It's just what you are. Your zero response has created ripples they're still trying to map. The people who attacked you are showing signs of what psychologists are calling reflection trauma. They're being destroyed by their own actions, because those actions had nowhere to land. They're going insane trying to understand why you won't react, why you won't acknowledge their power, why you won't validate their existence by fighting back. They've become obsessed with getting a response from you, any response, because your non-reaction has made them question everything about themselves. The special ops teams study this secondary effect with particular interest. They call it psychological void warfare. The ability to destroy enemies by simply not recognizing them as enemies. By refusing to participate in conflict, you create a vacuum that pulls your attackers into their own destruction. They exhaust themselves against nothing. They spend their resources attacking empty space. They destroy themselves trying to destroy something that isn't there to be destroyed. But here's what even the military doesn't fully understand yet. Your zero response isn't just about not reacting to attacks. It's about being so focused on your own growth that attacks become background radiation. You're not consciously ignoring sabotage. You genuinely don't notice it because you're operating on a different frequency. While they're playing in the sandbox of human drama, you're building castles and dimensions they can't see. This is the evolution they're desperately trying to understand and replicate. The ability to be so engaged with your own becoming that the games others play simply don't register. You're not avoiding the battlefield. You've transcended to a realm where battlefields don't exist. You're not winning the war. You've evolved beyond the concept of war itself. And that's why your zero response is so devastating. It reveals that the entire framework of conflict is optional. The military advisors have written papers about you, classified documents that explore the implications of widespread zero-response capability. They're terrified and fascinated in equal measure. Terrified because if this spreads, traditional power structures collapse. Fascinated because you represent the next stage of human psychological evolution. You're not just surviving in a hostile world. You're thriving by refusing to acknowledge hostility as real. The psychological warfare divisions have started using you as a case study in what they call asymmetric response theory. The idea that the most powerful response to an attack might be no response at all. That by not engaging with sabotage, you rob it of its power to exist, but they still approach it as a tactic, a strategy, a choice. They don't understand that for you, it's not a choice anymore. It's just what you are. Your zero response has created ripples they're still trying to map. The people who attacked you are showing signs of what psychologists are calling reflection trauma. They're being destroyed by their own actions, because those actions had nowhere to land. They're going insane trying to understand why you won't react, why you won't acknowledge their power, why you won't validate their existence by fighting back. They've become obsessed with getting a response from you, any response, because your non-reaction has made them question everything about themselves. The Special Ops teams study this secondary effect with particular interest. They call it psychological void warfare. The ability to destroy enemies by simply not recognizing them as enemies. By refusing to participate in conflict, you create a vacuum that pulls your attackers into their own destruction. They exhaust themselves against nothing. They spend their resources attacking empty space. They destroy themselves trying to destroy something that isn't there to be destroyed. But here's what even the military doesn't fully understand yet. Your zero response isn't just about not reacting to attacks. It's about being so focused on your own growth that attacks become background radiation. You're not consciously ignoring sabotage. You genuinely don't notice it because you're operating on a different frequency. While they're playing in the sandbox of human drama, you're building castles and dimensions they can't see. This is the evolution they're desperately trying to understand and replicate. The ability to be so engaged with your own becoming that the games others play simply don't register. You're not avoiding the battlefield. You've transcended to a realm where battlefields don't exist. You're not winning the war. You've evolved beyond the concept of war itself. And that's why your zero response is so devastating. It reveals that the entire framework of conflict is optional. The military advisors have written papers about you, classified documents that explore the implications of widespread zero-response capability. They're terrified and fascinated in equal measure. Terrified